Yo, what's going on, everybody? Today, what I'm going to do is go over my pre-run mobility routine. This is something that I do every single day before every single run, or at least I try to do it before every single run. Some days when I'm doing my triathlon workouts, I'm getting ready for my first triathlon at the end of the month. If I do like a swim and then a run, or then a bike and then a run, sometimes I don't really know where to put this mobility routine, so I've kind of forgotten it a couple of times. But on days where I'm running first in the morning, this is what I do first. This is from a day that I ended up filming it last week, so relatively recent. As you can tell, there's no facial hair there, so it's not that old of a video, but I'm gonna go through it without cutting it, and I'll just kind of narrate and explain things kind of like as I go. All right, so first thing I will see is on this particular day, I always start out with squats, but on this day, like my hips felt super tight. So I kind of do this thing sometimes when my hips feel tight, where I'll get down real low as I can in what in Korean we call dong position, or like poop position. Like if you were pooping over a hole in the ground, that's kind of what it is. Or if you're pooping in the cornfield, that's kind of the position you're in. And then I might rock forward a little bit, and then just to get things moving. But once I did that, then I did 10 squats. Everything that I do in my mobility routine is body weight. So 10 squats, and I'd like to try to get really down low. Then after that, I go into 10 single leg lunges on each leg. I usually keep my hands behind my back because I want to stay nice and vertical, and I feel like that helps me from avoiding if I'm leaning over too far or to the side. I've seen people put them above their heads or on their waist, but me putting my hands behind my back is kind of like the most natural way to go. And I know my knee comes out further over my toes a little bit, but I'm okay with that. I feel like that's normal. I also feel like it gives my tendon a good stretch, a good kind of stimulus in the morning before I get running as well. So I like to make sure that I'm doing that, 10 on each side. Now, I think I've switched over to the right-hand side now, or the right leg. I did the left leg already. But this whole routine originally started out for me as something that I did as leg strength, not mobility, but strength. And I did it like a couple times a week. And for me, like doing something a couple of times a week doesn't really work. If I could do stuff every day before every run, or I'll forget it a lot of the time. So I just started doing this every day. After the single leg, like the forward lunges, then I do my lateral lunges. And for these, I really like to try to get really, really low. And again, I keep my hands behind my back, because if I don't, what I find is that I kind of cheat. I let my hip like avoid getting mobile, and I bend down really far forward. So I like to try and keep my torso vertical as much as possible. I know I'm bending forward a lot, but I try to keep it vertical, and I really try to get in there, and on that side that I'm leaning towards, really kind of get a nice good stretch and sit down in there. Try to get kind of like my calf to touch my hamstring, get my butt as close to my ankle as possible, while making sure that on that one leg, the one ankle kind of comes up to pivot, but the leg that I'm going towards, I like to keep that foot flat, because then you could cheat very easily by lifting the toes forward or lifting the heel up and getting on your toes. That helps you kind of get more compressed, but I don't feel like it stretches open the hip as much. So I like to keep that hip, the side that I'm going to, keep that foot nice and flat. After that, sometimes I switch up the order. I'm not consistent on this. Today I've gone from the lateral lunges to the single leg deadlifts, and again I got my hands behind my back. For me, that's the best place for balance. Some people put their arms out like a Superman. Some people do like in front, all sorts of weird stuff. I just like them again behind my back, and what I try to do is, this is me trying to keep myself as straight as I can. I've been doing these for like a year now this way. I don't always have good balance, but I've been doing them for a while this way, and this is about as straight as I can get. And my goal is to be able to do these without rocking like too fast back and forth, so to have control the entire time, and to not have to touch down that one foot that's pivoting at all. I usually have to touch down like once, maybe twice during the set of 10. But I like to try and be kind of like as much of like Homer Simpson's drinking duck as possible when I do this. The other thing that I try to do is I try to keep my leg kind of flexed in like an L position for the foot, and I try to make sure it's straight and not tweaked to one side or the other. Again, I think it's like a hip rotation thing, like my leg likes to cheat, and I find that like if I let myself go, my one leg will just turn out real far if I don't try to keep it in there. And when I do that, I feel like then I'm pivoting from like my hip this way and not in the forward direction like I'm trying to do. So that's what I do for the single leg deadlifts. Then I do a reverse lunge, and I do these reverse lunges a little bit differently. I know a lot of people kind of like to step backwards when they do the reverse lunge, kind of like they do the forward lunge and you move forward, the backward lunge you should move backward. Instead, what I like to do is I'd like to try to keep the torso just moving up and down and move my back leg back. And what that does is it really extends that one knee way over the toes, again, making sure I'm getting some stimulus on the tendons. For me, I've had runners, I've had patellar tendonitis, or what I think was patellar tendonitis. I self-diagnosed off of information I found on the internet. Doing this tends to help me stay on the happy side of things as far as the tendons go. And it also, again, a lot of stuff is my hips get really locked up. And then that's it. So that's the entire routine. That's all that there is to it. There's not a ton to it. It doesn't take very long to get through this at all. That's the entire routine. Now I'll give you one additional bonus thing that I like to do sometimes after a run. So on really high mileage weeks or weeks where I've been training a lot or I'm feeling extra just cramped, maybe there's been weeks that I've been doing a lot of driving, doing some road trips, doing a lot of sitting down. Here's something else that I like to do. All right, so then if we go to on that same day, because I was feeling pretty jammed up that day, and here again, I'm doing just that deep squat, getting in there, rocking back in that position, rocking a little bit forward, getting my hands down, trying to touch both hands down on there. Sometimes I put my palms up just to make sure I'm really getting forward and rocking forward and just getting in the hip and kind of like move around, see how it feels and see what feels like it needs a little bit of loosening. And then after that or before that or in conjunction, sometimes I don't do both, I do these, I forget what they're called. It's something that I picked up on the internet. I'll post a link to where, there's lots of people that are doing this extra on the internet, but I'll post a link to where I first saw it down in the description below. And I do that like kind of like a downward dog into like a mountain climber. And I don't know exactly what it's called, but I'll do that, 5 or 6 times on each side just to really get that stretched out and opened up after the run as well, because after the run, I feel like sometimes things tend to get a little bit cramped up, a little bit bound up as well. And so like after the run, while things are kind of still warm but cooling down, I like to make sure things are limber. I don't do that every day. That I do as needed. If I feel like I get back from a run and I feel like I'm waddling a little bit, that's a good sign that I might need to loosen things up a little bit. But that's it. That's all I do, but that's the maintenance that I've been doing to enable me to continue training and running hard through some of these very different activities that I've been doing this summer over the different types of distances and speeds and intensity. So that's just become part of my routine now. And even the hardest part of doing it is when you're running late in the morning and you're like, oh, I only had an hour anyway, and now I'm 15 minutes late. To take that time to do the pre-run routine is really, really hard. But I feel like the way I see it, your run's already cut short anyway. Really pay yourself first and do that pre-run mobility stuff, because when you're rushed and running late, those are probably the days that you need to do that pre-run mobility the most. So pay yourself first, do that, and then get in whatever you can get in. And that way you can continue running and without any kind of injury. So that's what I've been doing. It hasn't changed very much from the last time I posted it, but a lot of you guys have been asking me for, is there a standalone version of that, updated version of that? So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions about what I'm doing in the comments, put them down below. I'd love to talk to you guys there, or better yet, feel free to stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube. I'd love to be able to interact with you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, what's going on?